We got breaking news on the ice for CBS Sports HQ when it comes to Peter DeBoer is out as the head coach of the Dallas Stars. Maybe a shocker this morning, but the Stars, of course, reached a Western Conference final in each of his 3 seasons behind the bench in Dallas, but were never able to get over the hump and win a title. His record concludes there 149, 68, and 29. But, of course, losing all those times in the Western Conference final, he's now showing the door out there in Dallas. For more, I want to bring in our Pete Blackburn. Of course, this is news this morning, but your reaction to DeBoer out there in Dallas, Pete?
Yeah, it's both a shock and not a shock at the same time somehow because, I mean, you're looking at a Dallas team that went to the Western Conference Final 3 years in a row under Pete DeBoer. And, yeah, they lost in the conference final all 3 times, but it's hard to get there. And only one team comes out of the West each season. But why it's not shocking is because of the way that Pete DeBoer spoke about his team and particularly his franchise goalie after that exit in the Western Conference Final. He threw Jake Ottinger under the bus after pulling him 7 minutes into that Game 5. And it was just, it didn't sit well with the team. There were reports that came out afterwards that say that the other members, not just Jake Ottinger, didn't like how Pete DeBoer handled himself. And I think, when you zoom out a little bit too, this is a Dallas team that finished the season, the regular season, pretty underwhelming, pretty disappointing. They had a hard time stringing wins together, and then they barely escaped the first round. Like, this could have easily been a first round exit as well if it weren't for Mikko Rantanen and his heroics in Game 7 against the Colorado Avalanche. So, I think a combination of things made the Dallas front office come to this decision, but ultimately I don't think it happens if Pete DeBoer doesn't throw his goaltender under the bus after Game 5.
You mentioned the front office. They have some work to do, of course, maybe retooling this roster, but it starts with the next candidate in line. If you are looking for a head coach, if you're Jim Neal in that front office, who is that key component or that next HC for them?
That's a good question because yesterday we thought we saw our last head coaching vacancy filled. We thought we saw the Boston Bruins kind of put a bow on the off-season coaching carousel, and then boom, one day later, there's another vacancy. So a lot of the jobs have been filled. A lot of the candidates have been plucked off the market, but there are still guys that can be, talked to, obviously. There's a Jay Woodcroft who's been looking for a job ever since he got fired from the Edmonton Oilers last season. You can talk about Peter Laviolette, who's still available. Like, those are 2 veteran guys, or I guess Woodcroft is not so veteran, but Peter Laviolette is a very well-respected veteran head coach. There's a number of guys that they can go with, but, I'll be interested. They're getting a late start here, and we've heard a lot of rumors about what their roster might be looking at in terms of changes this offseason. They're in a late start. They got some ground to catch up on, and they got to get going pretty soon.
Pete, you mentioned there, of course, we thought we had the list filled, and now we have an opening. But if you're other teams out there who maybe have question marks about their current head coach, and knowing what we do know about DeBoer getting his team to the Western Conference Finals 3 times, 149 wins, is there a chance he could find a new job like this?
I'd be surprised. Like, I feel like most teams have already committed to whatever they're planning on doing head coaching wise to this point right now. And, Pete DeBoer's a really great coach to get his team there, but you also kind of have to take the ugly with the good when it comes to Pete DeBoer, specifically with the goaltending situation. This is not the first time that he's burned a franchise goalie. It's kind of becoming his thing here. So I just don't know if I see a team willing to fire their coach at this point in the offseason to go get Pete DeBoer. I could be wrong about that. As a Boston guy, I've heard some people ask me, should the Bruins have waited to hire their head coach? Maybe Pete DeBoer was going to become available. Should the Bruins have waited another day? My answer would be no, because the Bruins have one of the more sensitive goaltenders in the NHL as their franchise goaltender with Jeremy Swayman, and I don't know if you want to pair that guy with Pete DeBoer at this point. So I think those questions are going to kind of linger over DeBoer from this point on.
Yeah, DeBoer and goalies 0 for 2 right now when it comes to all the stuff that comes with him with that. Appreciate, as always, the breaking news. Pete Blackburn let us know Pete DeBoer, of course, out there in Dallas. But good thing is we got more hockey. That would be the Stanley Cup Final Game 2 tonight, back up in Edmonton. We saw what happened in Game 1. Leon Draisaitl calling game there and giving them a 1-0 series lead. We'll see what the Panthers can do if they can rebound tonight starting at 8 Eastern.